I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting for the Village of Tinley Park to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lori, at this time, can you take the roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Present.
Commissioner Gatto.
Present.
Commissioner Hamilton. Commissioner Manny.
Present.
Commissioner Merrick.
Here.
Commissioner Shaw.
Present.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Present.
Commissioner Truxell.
Here.
Chairman Gray.
Present. Okay, a quorum is present. We'll move on to communications. Staff, do you have any communications at this time?
There are no communications at this time.
Okay. We'll move on to the approval of last meeting's minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 3rd, 2022 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Shaw. All those in favor of approving the November 3rd, 2022 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We'll move on to item 1 on tonight's agenda. Item 1 is a public meeting, public hearing considering recommending the village board grant Melissa Christensen on behalf of Brady Gill Funeral Home and Cremation Services a special use for a dwelling located above a principal commercial use and site plan architectural approval at 16600 Oak Park Avenue in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of opening the public meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public meeting is, public hearing is open. I have received certification of the public meeting being published in the local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in, but after staff gives their presentation. So at this time, staff, if you can please give your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So for public hearing, number 1, this is for Brady Gill Funeral Home Edition at 16600 Oak Park Avenue. This is for a special use for a dwelling above a principal use and also for site plan architectural approval. The existing site is just located a little south here on Oak Park Avenue. The property is highlighted in red. It is a large property, over 114,000 square feet, with a freestanding funeral home a little under 9,000 square feet. It has a unique configuration with a large amount of open space at the southeast, as you can see in the lower image. So there is a unique layout of parking and ample space for further development of parking if needed. There are no landscape end islands on the property, which is a landscaping code requirement for future requests. The vehicles enter, of course, off of Oak Park Avenue. The building is rectangular, situated diagonally along Oak Park with a porte cochere as the main entry. Opposite to that on the rear is where the proposed addition will be. Currently, there's a driveway access located there. So as far as some landscaping that's existing on the site, as you can see from the aerial, there are some trees on the north end of the property, north being up, and on the west, there's a row of mature evergreen trees. Here are a few images provided that show what the frontage looks along Oak Park Avenue, as well as what that driveway existing access looks at the rear of the property. Again, this is for the use of the funeral home, so this is where the hearses come in, funeral vehicles, and where like flower deliveries and other such back of house type of activities would occur. So for zoning and nearby land uses, this is in the B3 General Business Zoning District. To the north and south is the same. This is our general commercial. To the west is the residential R6 medium density. It's largely composed of single-family detached with some attached development at the far north of that adjacency, so close to the northwest corner. And then to the east across Oak Park Avenue is the B4, Office and Service Business. So there's the Tinley Park Professional Center as well as multi-tenant commercial office buildings. The proposed use is for the petitioner wishes at that rear of the building to construct 2 stories. So this addition will, regards to the first floor, have the funeral vehicles come in as a garage, as well as a garage for a proposed apartment. The apartment will be on the 2nd floor. So the apartment will, have 2 points of entry. The square footage of the apartment is 2204 at the ground, and then 2,030 at the top, with the difference being accounting for dual height stairwells. The petitioner plans to live in the apartment in order to help better serve clientele by being on site at all times. So overall, this is an addition that will be going in on the site, and landscaping and lighting, as well as the routing of vehicles, does change with the comparing to the existing condition. So the first zoning entitlement is for a special use for the apartment. As I noted, it's going to be above the principal commercial use, which in our code requires a special use. This has been in practice in the business districts over the years, and it aligns with current planning trends towards mixed-use type of development. Staff recommends that the residential units to be above commercial with separate entrances, to have a primary separate entrance to help avoid substandard units and conflicts. Mix of uses and site layout is important to consider when you account for things like nuisances to not affect the residents. Here are floor plans. So we came here back in October for the workshop, so none of this has changed. It's showing the ground floor with the garages and a storage, as well as you can see the courtyard entry with 2 points of entry with those stairwells, and then the upper floor, of course, is entirely the apartment. So from that open item, we discussed the request of having this generally as a special use. The commission feedback was positive, with noting that it helps density in the area, it helps provide additional space for particular uses that they need on the property, in this case, allowing additional space for storage, sprinklers, flower deliveries, that sort of thing. The special use permit is not going to be restricted by who can live in that apartment, so it could be open to outside tenancy. The petitioner stated that it is our intent at this time to live in the apartment. The site plan here is largely the same as previously presented at the workshop. The only difference being the corner of the driveway access has been cut in order to avoid going into the drainage and public utility easement at the north end of the site. So this is a coordination that the architect and the engineer on the project have worked to resolve. The addition, as I said, it's to the northwest of the building at the rear, so you will have this addition as well as that driveway access. The driveway access is the dark gray that you can see. There will also be a new trash enclosure that is immediately up, that would be to the west of the addition, and a new ground mechanical unit that would be south of the eastern part of that driveway access. There will be, the courtyard will be 12 feet wide, and as I said, we'll have the 2 points of entry. There's also going to be a landscaped peninsula that will be adjacent to that driveway access. This helps meet the code that we have in place for landscaping. And also the handicapped accessible spaces will be restriped with a ramp to meet Illinois accessibility state code requirements. Existing conditions as provided by the preliminary engineering drawings are shown up here. And the only difference from the previous submittal is that these plans remain the same. Of course, it's part of a reprinted set in which there is a change in the dimension of the landscape island to coordinate with the architect. So the scope of the work in the engineering largely revolves around having utility cut out, as you can see, pochade in the parking lot. And the engineer has noted there is 2,849 square feet of changes in impervious surface. This has been reviewed by our village engineer, and the MWRD will require a WMO permit due to these utilities. So this open item was resolved with positive workshop feedback, and this is to discuss the location for the site and overall site plan review. The landscaping, as I noted, they will be providing additional landscaping on top of what we have here. There's only one tree removal. The driveway access will have evergreens that will line along the perimeter, and there will be additional trees placed on the landscape peninsula. There will be a small magnolia tree along with bushes. So there was no objection to the landscape proposal at the workshop. The commission noted this would help alleviate traffic concerns as a way to help channel the traffic that would come in and out for that driveway access, again, that being the use for the apartment and the funeral vehicles. Architecture, you can see here the exterior elevations is proposed, so no changes to this from the workshop. It is intended to largely match the building where possible with roof line shapes, the brick, the roof line, well, the shingles will also be replaced for the entire roof. And, as this is a substantial addition, we do want to consider massing and volume, but when you look at the adjacent neighborhoods, this, as far as building heights, does blend in with the community. As far as the materials, so the entries will largely be IFAS in a white color, and brick will be a grayish beige color. You can see the images as existing. This will basically be to match what's out there. And then the image of the brick is photographed on a sunny day is shown there. Our petitioner's architect has provided some material samples here of the shingles for the roof, as well as a couple of bricks. I can quickly show them to you. They're the same. It's just to be able to provide showing any variety. So these are as proposed. So there's a little bit of difference in the brick. The petitioner's architect can explain a little bit further, but staff does want to point out that over time, brick does weather, and it will anticipate to better align with the existing brick out there. Again, these conditions as photographed here and as here is not the same lighting. At the meeting, we also, at our workshop, we discussed the composition of the materials at the entry. Originally, in an iteration prior to coming to Plan Commission, the petitioner had proposed the entry to be all IFAS. Staff had suggested to provide some breakup of the space, or of this materials. So in this proposal, it has always been to the commission that it has between the top of the door on the ground level to the bottom of the window on the second, is just adding in this brick. So with that said, the rest of the architecture, there's steel garage doors with tinted windows. There's brick soldier coursing throughout, and there are corner wood column elements on the second floor. The materials are all intended to match what's there, so there's existing bronze aluminum So that will match. As far as the lighting, there'll be Coach Light style lighting, which is different from the existing cylinder sconces, but, this doesn't really conflict with them based on which facades that you're looking at in the building. The trash enclosure will match the proposed brick. So with this open item, this was resolved with positive workshop feedback. The petitioner noted the original reason to have all IFAS without this breakup of brick was to help the architecture feel more delicate. As far as parking, overall, 1 parking space is being added throughout the property. So this is doing the addition and subtractions of, as of right now, there is only a 2-car garage for the funeral vehicles, and now it becomes 4. And the adjustment of the parking spaces along the perimeter of the building in order to become state compliant with the handicap accessible parking. The garage, it's actually 2 garages, so they're partitioned, 2 for the apartment, 2 for the funeral vehicles. And the funeral home, they do have the possibility to provide 3 chapel partitions. It's not how the owner is operating it. She's operating it as 1 chapel. But even if it were that more intense use, the parking quantities still comply with the zoning code, as only 20 spaces per chapel, plus the funeral vehicles are the only requirements, along with the 2 spaces for the apartment. As far as the parking history on the site, funeral home parking can be vacant at times, and it, depending on how many people attend a funeral, there could be more or less, but the village is not aware in all the years that this is operated to have heard of any issues with the parking. So the only really proposed increase in use would be for the apartment, which, as I noted at this time, already has the parking provided in with a garage. There's that large area at the southeast corner of the site if parking were ever to be, additional parking were ever to be needed. And as I noted with the coach lighting, you can see an image of that here. The petitioner has provided a photometric, which importantly shows code compliance at the property lines as far as maximum foot candles. And there is a slight shift of 1 existing light pole. That's just to account for the shift in when you add the addition and the drive aisle. So no workshop objections were noted to discussing the proposed lighting. So that concludes my staff presentation. I have the standards up on the screen. Here I have Carrie Buxbaum, architect for the project, as well as Melissa Christensen and Mike Ford representing the engineering.
Okay. Well, does the applicant or the applicant's team have anything to add at this time?
No, not unless you have any questions.
Okay. If we do, we'll have to swear you in, but I'll ask our commissioners for some comments. Beginning with Commissioner Merrick, any comments?
No, I like the addition of more density, but it's good, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Truxell.
No additional comments, and everything, all the comments were positive with the workshop. The plan hasn't varied since then, so everything looks good to me, actually.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell.
Yeah, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Commissioner Shaw.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty good at the workshop. The one question I had with the clip corner, just out of curiosity, was that, was the easement on the plan? I don't recall seeing that myself.
Yeah, the easement was on the plan.
Okay.
And we actually were going over roughly about 1.5 feet.
You'll have to,
Oh,
yeah, you'll have to go up to the microphone.
Sorry about that.
Swear in, I'll have to swear you in, state your name and write it down for the record as well. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, proceed.
Okay. Anyway, the parking lot went onto the public easement by about 2 feet and on triangle, so that we cut that off. That's all we did. So that we're right up against the easement and not on it, so.
Okay. No, sorry, I didn't mean to make you go through all that just to answer that question. I appreciate it.
Well, there might be
though.
more, let's put it that way.
The only reason I'm asking is because I didn't notice it myself when I looked at the plan, and so I was just,
Yeah, we changed
Wondering if
that
it was
because
on-
that was brought up last time, so.
Okay.
The engineer and I just fixed the plan so
Right.
that the corners cut off.
Great,
Right.
looks good. Like I said, we beat it up pretty good at the last time, so no further questions.
Right, and I just, to piggyback what Commissioner Shaw said, as long as the architect and the engineer's in agreement and it stays off that utility easement, that 2 foot or whatever on that corner seems very incidental, you know?
It is.
I would doubt that would be used when you're pulling back anyhow, so. Okay,
The driveway is 24 foot wide, so it's more than enough to back up and pull out, so.
Commissioner Manny.
My only comment is that the proposed addition looks good, so. That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Gatto.
I have no further comments.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
I'm in agreement with my fellow commissioners.
Okay. And I too, I don't have any really additional comments. I do appreciate bringing the material to view. That always,
Just keep in mind that the brick that is here is basically almost the same as what's out there. It's the building's 34 years old, it's weathered and everything else. But Illinois Brick was out there, we took a look at it, and that's what they gave me. They said, this is as close as we're gonna get.
Right.
When it weathers and leaches out and everything else, it'll blend in more. Now, the shingles that she has on the existing building are pretty old, okay? There's a few places that need to be repaired. So we're gonna just do the whole building with the new shingles.
okay.
And with the contrast between the black and the I guess you call it beige color, you know, it will look good.
Okay, no worries. We always appreciate the materials, and material matching at the site is much more,
So it's better to take a look at it.
oh, it's better than looking at a printout, which if I print it on a different printer, it's gonna look different. So we understand, and we appreciate you bringing the sample in. I don't have any other comments myself. So at this time, I will entertain if there's anyone from the public wishing to have any comments regarding this item. Please come up and speak. I'll swear you in. Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the commission, any more discussion? Seeing none. If there's no further questions or discussion, may I have a motion to close the public hearing for this item?
So moved?
Okay. So motion made by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Truxell. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried. Staff, will you please present the standards at this time?
Up on the screen, I have the standards for a special use. I will try to go over them in not too verbatim, but to get the general idea. So for the first, the primary entry of the dwelling will be separately dedicated for its use and meets the village's area bulk and setback zoning requirements. So this means it will not be detrimental or endanger public health, safety, morals, welfare, or comfort. Secondly, the dwelling use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of surrounding properties nor impair property values. The staff notes the staff proposes that the proposal is complementary to the residential developments that abut it, as well as the commercial principal use of the property. Thirdly, regarding impeding normal and orderly development, the proposed dwelling unit is part of an addition which will not impede the normal and orderly development of surrounding properties and is of compatible scale and design to the area, and the use will fit in with the existing surrounding residential developments. Next, adequate utilities are being proposed as part of engineering plans. Access roads and other necessary facilities are existing with no changes proposed. Adequate measures have been taken to provide ingress and egress. A landscape peninsula will direct driveway access at the end of the parking lot. F is regarding to be in compliance with regulations, so the petitioner states the proposal will conform to all other applicable codes and regs. And then lastly, regarding contribution to economic development, this will indirectly contribute to the economic development of the community by providing a dwelling use and additional taxable property value. And then up on the screen, I have on this sheet is a summary of what the architectural standards for our zoning code are. So building materials, design of building, its architecture, color, design, entry, roof, building articulation, mechanicals, and enclosures. for trash. And these are the further details into each of those items. And then here are additional items for consideration for site plan, site design. So that concludes the standards. There are two motions. I have on screen the special use for, that should just read special use permit up on the screen.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. So at this time, may I have a motion number one, for a special use permit regarding this item?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant Melissa Christensen on behalf of Brady Gill Funeral Home and Cremation Services a special permit for a dwelling located above a principal commercial use at 16600 Oak Park Avenue in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District in accordance with plans submitted and adopted findings of fact as proposed in the November 17, 2022 staff report.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Yes.
Commissioner Truxell.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. Now, at this time, I have a motion number two regarding site plan and architectural approval.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the petitioner Melissa Christensen on behalf of Brady Gill Funeral Home and Cremation Services, site plan and architectural approval at 16600 Oak Park Avenue in the B3 Business and Commercial Zoning District. In accordance with the plans submitted and adopted, findings of fact is proposed in the November 17, 2022 staff report, subject to the following conditions. Approval is subject to final engineering review and approval by the village engineer. Approval is subject to approval of the requested special use permit by the village board. And final color and materials shall be subject to review and approval by the village staff prior to issuance of a building permit.
Okay, do we hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Truxell. Lori, please take the roll call.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Yes.
Commissioner Truxell.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. So this item will go to the village board on Tuesday, December 6th. So, Ms. Christensen, you and your design team, please attend, and good luck with your project. Okay.
Is that here?
Yes, at Village Hall. Yeah,
Yes, and it will be for first reading as well as adoption.
sure. Yeah, just talk with staff to get the details for time and that, et cetera. Okay, and you guys don't have to, you're off the hook. If you want to leave, go ahead. Okay, moving on to item 2 for tonight. Item 2 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Anthony DeAngelis on behalf of Intercontinental Real Estate and Development a special use for a substantial deviation to the Odyssey Club planned unit development at Olympus Drive and Apollo Court in the R5 PD Low Density Residential Odyssey Club PUD zoning district. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of opening the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public hearing is open. I have received certification of the public hearing notice being published in a local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. So at this time, staff, if you could proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. So this public hearing is item number 2 for Odyssey Club Townhomes Model Change, special use for planned unit development's substantial deviation to the PUD and site plan architectural approval. The existing site, so you can see here by an aerial image, the subject property is highlighted in red, which is a part of the larger development, the Odyssey Club planned unit development, which is highlighted in blue as the rectangular property. So the subject property in red is over 19 acres, consists of Olympus Drive and Apollo Court. It is 32 lots and part of the Fairway Townhomes. And so this is a large planned unit development that's been designed and phased over decades, and so this is Phase 7. So, as I noted, it's part of the Odyssey Club PUD. This is all located in the northwest corner of Ridgeland and Volmer Road, and this dates back to, we're talking 1990s. In 1990, property was annexed and rezoned. There was a special use for townhomes in 1996 for the Fairway and Greenview townhomes. In 1999, there was a substantial deviation that allowed for additional townhomes with rezoning. So this increased the density of the townhomes, reduced the density of the single-family detached. And as part of the findings in that ordinance, it was noted that it was consistent with the Village Comprehensive Plan that designated general area as mixed residential with open space. So the image that you just saw with the aerial, that was with north pointing up. So here is a phasing plan that was part of our village records from 2002, where you can see the various shades of color and poching, the different parts of development over time. So the subject property, the Phase 7, is what you would see at the upper right. North is to the left in this image. So as I said, Phase 7, 32 lots, previous approval for 117 units. This is not changing. 25 of these lots, 91 units, are currently vacant land. 4 lots have been built and are occupied, and 3 lots at this moment are under active construction. So as far as the zoning and nearby land uses, the Odyssey Club PUD, it does have multiple zoning districts within it based on these different types of land uses of the single-family attached and single-family detached. So in orange, you can see the R5, which allows for the single-family detached. The other 2 developments are part of the original part of the Fairview on the southwest, and, Fairway, and Greenview on the northeast. The remainder in yellow is R2. So when it says PD, that means it's part of the planned unit development. So this is the single-family detached. To the north is the Odyssey Golf Club, and south is vacant land as part of the Village of Madison. To the east, unincorporated Cook County Forest land, and to the west, unincorporated vacant land. The special use approval is, the substantial deviation is a special use, and this is all triggered because it is changing the planned unit development. So any changes to the previous planned unit development must go through this process to receive village board approval. The previous approval allowed largely for 2-story townhome buildings, and this proposal is allowing another element of development, of model type, for a 1-story, single-story ranch type of building. So the petitioner, in their narrative supplemental application materials as part of the staff packet, had noted that while leasing existing model units, over the years, there's been a change in customer preference as part of market demand. We have empty nesters and move-down type of demographic that wants, the demand is more for a single story, not to go upstairs, for slightly smaller units. So this proposal is responding to that market demand. And the petitioners noted also that the proposed architecture and floor plans reflect this market demand. The amenities of the planned unit development are also something that is part of this whole package of living in the Odyssey Club development. There are some site features as part of, for example, Olympus Drive that is not complete yet, right, because the land has not been developed. So having this proposal go through will help provide completion of some of these benefits. This community is a gated community that helps provide privacy, and there's a large amount of open space and being close to the golf course. So here's another image of the general site plan. So there are two site plans that were submitted. This is a general one that simply shows the footprints of the buildings that are proposed. These are the 25 of the 32 lots. That would be the 91 of 117 units that have not been built yet. It's vacant land. So those are shown in a dark outline. And then the ghosted outlines are what has either been constructed or under construction. So you can see that there's a breakdown of different unit types. So shown in the blow up there is what a typical 4-unit building would lay out like. The petitioner believes overall that the proposal helps enhance the area by completing the construction of these vacant lots and to the overall development of the planned unit development. The first open item is to discuss whether the proposed change to allowing single-story ranch is appropriate for the planned unit development. So, as I said, there's two site plans. This is the more detailed one that shows the latest plan showed specifically some exhibits that show how the properties, as far as the lot lines, the lot lines are not changing, but the building footprint does slightly change. It gets slightly smaller. So the site plan helps identify those specific setbacks. And specifically, the calculations referenced from changes from the previous approval, 325 square feet in the 4-unit types, 593 square feet in the 2-unit types, 627 square feet in the 3-unit types. And this is for not by unit, but this is for the whole building footprint. As I said, no other changes to the lot lines, no changes to the plat of subdivision or the site plan otherwise. The petitioner noted, again, there are no encroachments into any of the easements. As far as landscaping, landscaping is consistent with what's existing and installed out there. Here's a couple of images that show a tree at the front of the property as well as evergreens at the rear. At the bottom of the screen, you can see the 3 different proposals. So as the basic way to look at this is as you add, every unit has a tree. So 4 trees for the 4 units. And then there are 17 4-unit townhome buildings. And then as far as 3 units, there are 3 of them. And then there's only 1 2-unit building. So as I said, it's 1 tree per dwelling unit. Our landscape code does have 1 parkway tree requirement per 50 feet of frontage. This has not been constructed on the site as it is. This is a minor waiver, given that there are a large number of these trees that are in the front yard of these properties. Staff feels is supportive and feels a waiver would be appropriate for that element of the landscaping code. For architecture, the proposal is these remaining 25 of 32 lots to have 1 building per lot, broken down into 91 units, a single-story ranch. Importantly, the unit density is not changing. So the previous approval, out of these 25, had 17 4-unit, 7 3-unit, and 1 2-unit. There is, as I said, a reduction in the building area. I previously mentioned the building footprint. The petitioner did provide an exhibit that showed the building area for above grade, so that's excluding any basements, but including garage. So this is aggregate where you combine all of the units together. So these numbers are for if it's a 4-unit building, it's over the whole 4 units, not per unit. So those numbers were 2,614 square feet in the 4-unit type, 162 feet in the 2-unit type, and 419 square feet in the 3-unit type. The proposal, it's also worth noting, is responding to the market demands. Some of the market looks for additional storage needs, so some have basements and some are slabs. So 13 of 25 will have basements. The previous approval, the numbers are calculated from these models that are out there. As I said, it's largely two-story. The Innsbruck model is 2,723 square feet. Fairmont is 2,601. Greenbrier is 2,353. And the one-story Jamestown, 2,330 square feet. The proposal out of these 91 units are for, based on the configurations, is 50 end units. They're identified as Unit A, a little under 2,000 square feet. That's 1,926. And then 41 interior units. They're Unit B, 1,695. So it's almost 1,700 square feet. Per unit, reductions range based on the comparisons to the different models, anywhere from as little as 404 square feet to as much as 1,028 square feet, depending on the unit type. And it's notable that this is mainly due just to the loss of the second story. Here is a floor plan of this is the floor plan for the 4-unit type. So you can see is a 4-unit, it has 2 end units. These are the Unit A's, and then on the interior, those are the Unit B's. Here is an elevation. So the 4-unit, I'm showing this is the 3-unit, and the 1-2 unit are very similar to it. Those are part of the packet that was available along with the staff report. So you can see it's a 1-story building that has the 4 units, with some gable design, entry columns on the ends. The side views are on the bottom of the screen. The color, this was just illustrative color. The actual physical samples have been provided for 2 color schemes. So I can briefly show them. So the petitioner has provided 2 color options. They're both neutral. So I'll quickly show them here. As I go by, you can see for the shingles, where the petitioners noted on the left side the top, and on the right side, second from the bottom, those are the shingle types that go with it. So these are neutral colors. Not to worry, I have an image that'll be up on the screen that kind of roughly shows this as well, for those in the audience. Okay. While we're on the elevations, I'll also show this exhibit that the petitioner provided, where it's a comparison showing an example of what the older style versus the new style would be. So the top is the newer style, the center of your screen is the older style, and then on the bottom are side comparisons, the left being the new style, the right being the old style. So this is 1990s style architecture versus something that's more contemporary. Overall, staff notes that the shape appears to be complementary. We're looking at things like the massing of the building. In particular, there's a difference with the gables. So the overall footprint is similar, but when we go into some of these details, there are these differences. So there's the large front gable, as I noted before. It's a nested design, so you have one big gable over 2 units with a smaller gable over one of the garages. So you still get that individual look. You get a little bit more variety with the gables. And the second part to note is about the front door entries. So the columns are more substantial. The entries are a little bit wider. There's a bit more detail that's provided for these. The existing units that were already out there, already approved, they have the individual garage gables. It's not as different in scale, right? It's all one is the same as the other. The other thing to note is, as far as the side of the buildings, given that those are largely two-story, there's a large expanse of siding on the sides. So with the proposal, it does help by, having some better designed entries on the side of the buildings, and it being one story, it does help provide a bit more variety. The rear of the proposal, it's one thing that staff did note in the report. It appears to complement the existing. There is less architectural variety, given that it's a ranch. When you have two stories, you have the opportunity to have more shapes and more elements. So with this, you can see on the bottom, this is the 3-unit, and I point this one out as opposed to the 4-unit. The 4-unit doesn't have any other properties that prominently face to the back of it, whereas the 3-unit has Apollo Court that, there's 4 properties that have this Apollo Court that circles around. 2 of the properties are already built and developed, the other 2 are not. So as far as the materials, as I showed a moment ago, there's proposed brick. The brick, the siding, the roofing remain these primary similar materials. There's still brick soldier coursing, the window design, as well as the stone sills below the windows, the frieze fascia board, the gable trims and eaves. These are not exactly the same, but they're similar. Some differences that staff noted, so we have on the entries a timber truss gable design that is a prominent visual element that does serve as a replacement for the loss of an existing stone facade accent that is present on the other units. So in the middle image, you can see where it shows a front yard, that there is a stone accent there, as well as along the entry, there's a low wall for some of the end unit entry points. More articulated columns, so the columns are thicker, there's stone caps, there's a more substantial base. There'll be a privacy screen between the interiors of the 4-unit types as well as on the rear of all of the unit types. One difference is because it's not a second story, there's not as many material varieties as what's been present or what's been approved before. So on the lower left, you can see what the 2-story has with this cedar trim around the windows and a second type of siding configuration that's up on the second story. So by losing the second story, it's not detail that's present in the current proposal, but again, there's other elements that add to this. It's a similar and complementary design overall. There's also discussion about the downspouts. So on a few of the existing buildings, the downspouts are actually located on the columns, on the entry columns, on the end units. So the staff has asked the petitioner about this. They anticipate that the downspouts will not be on the columns, that they'll be elsewhere nearby on the wall. So you can see that on the lower right where that's one of the buildings that has that situation, as well as that large expansive siding on the second story I mentioned before. So here is the color samples for the audience. Samples are also up here up front that show the 2 neutral schemes. So on the left, this is kind of the sandy tan option. The material names are noted as well. So it's a type of tone that, it's neutral, as well as the one on the right, which is more of a reddish brown. The one that's the sandy tan one is one that's kind of a blend between the 2 existing end units on Olympus Drive. So it's something that's kind of not quite off-white and not quite a medium brown, but something in between. And the other is from the building that is currently under construction that has the masonry up. So as I mentioned, that first one, that was kind of a blend. These are, the two top rows are those two end properties. You can kind of get a feel for, not just the color, but the overall architecture of those two. And then another exhibit the staff provided is on the bottom, where it shows, and again, this is photographs on a daylight outside versus what you're seeing here. These are the different shades and tones of the brick. So lastly, overall, this development, it requires a consideration of whether it's complementary to the existing development, looking at these architectural elements, as I mentioned above. Staff recommends conditioning approval that physical materials be provided during permitting. So as you can see, these are some that are here, but we would want to ensure that what is actually provided in the permit is what we're seeing and that staff is agreeable to it. So this is the second and last open item to discuss whether the proposed architecture is appropriate and complementary to the development, which has existing buildings in place. Consider building height, massing, materials, architectural styles, aesthetics, and neutral color variations. That's the summary of the two items, and I have the standards up on the screen. Here in the audience, I have Anthony DeAngelis, who is representative of the ownership, as well as Patricia Halikias, representing the ownership.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Does the applicant have anything to add? Either Patricia or Anthony? If you do, come up and I'll swear you
I think
in.
Lori did an awesome job of giving the overview. We spent a lot of time talking, so we're both available to discuss questions or anything that you guys might want to bring up.
Okay. Fair enough. You might have to come up and get sworn in if we have
That's
some questions for you. We'll begin with Commissioner Gaskell. Any questions or concerns?
No, I don't have any questions. I'm satisfied with the changes.
Okay. Commissioner Truxell.
I noted that the plat hasn't changed, and this has been phase 7's been planned all along, I guess. It's just, it seems like there's one way in and out of this new section, when I looked at the way it's laid out, and I'm not sure if that's accurately depicted, and if that's a concern for safety vehicles or not. Other than that, less density, no problem there, and the designs and the colors and material looks good to me.
Okay. Commissioner Merrick.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Commissioner Tibbetts.
I think that the change is appropriate for the prospective buyer, which is the empty nester that doesn't want to walk up 2 or 3 flights of stairs to get to their bedroom. I also think that the architecture is consistent with the existing properties that are around. It brings some change to the development, consistent with what's happening elsewhere, so I'm in favor of it as a whole.
Commissioner Gale.
He said everything that I would have said. I agree. I think it brings great change to the area, especially for your empty nester who doesn't want to go up 2 flights of stairs. And we don't have a lot of that in town here. There isn't a lot of ranch townhomes, and I think it's a great addition.
Okay. Commissioner Manning.
I agree as well with the commissioners. It's good.
Okay. Commissioner Shaw.
I just had a couple questions with respect to the basements. It's at 13 and 25 with basements, so 12 without. And I'm just curious if there's something driving that, whether it's the land or is that just, kind of a design decision? If these are going to be spec homes,
Anthony,
or
I'm
is
gonna
that an option?
I'll swear you in. So,
Sure.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, proceed.
Ken, yes. Part of it is being driven, actually, it's mainly being driven by engineering, and our engineer went out there and evaluated the as-built condition, the existing topography, the existing roads, utilities, everything because the subdivision's fully improved. All the lots are fully improved. But we're obviously changing the footprint, configuration of these buildings. So we charge them with come up with a plan that allows us to balance the site without the least amount of disturbance of the existing utilities and doesn't affect the roads and still is in compliance with the grades on the driveways and everything else, and tell us and maximize the number of basements, because we still want to offer basements. Remember, the first 26 units that we've built all have basements. Okay, we're going to have 51 more of the ranches that will have basements, and then there'll be 40 that are slab on grade ranch units. So that's a total of 66% that will have full basements.
Okay. I suspected
Yeah.
that might be the answer, I just wanted to know.
Well, I mean, we didn't want to get involved with hauling dirt in, hauling dirt out to try and create all basements. We wanted them just balanced and make it all work grade-wise with what's been already developed, so.
Okay. So, is it fair to say that you've already decided what's gonna go where, and these are?
Yes.
These are spec homes essentially, right?
Well, yes, I mean, we gave a site
Externally,
plan.
anyway.
We gave a site plan that identified all the different units, the A and B units, and the configuration of the buildings on each lot, so. And we also identify which lots will have basements and which won't.
Okay.
So it's very well, documented already.
So, just not to repeat what some of the other commissioners have said, but I'd like to emphasize that I also appreciate that it's updated architecture, it looks nice, and recognizing that there is a market need, it fulfills a need that the village does have, which wasn't satisfied by the original, what's approved right now.
Exactly.
The concern that I would have for the existing owners right now is essentially building something that might be perceived as of less value, right? And so in looking at some of the plans, looking at understanding the market and what the need is, at least as I'm seeing it, that's not the case. If the materials are consistent or even higher quality than what is currently out there, that's the key one. So for me anyway, that would be a condition of approval, staff review of that. The one thing I would say in the rear elevation that you're showing, that I like the front elevation. It is broken up with the mixed gables. The rear elevation to me just seems it's like a sea of shingles, and it kind of it takes away from that impact. And for me personally, even if it were something like some faux gables in there or something like that, I think that might help break up that rear elevation and give it a little bit of, something a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I think something to keep in mind, first of all, is the unique part of this Phase 7 is there's only, as Lori pointed out, 4 buildings that back up to another building across from each other. The rest of them are are surrounded by golf course. So nobody's looking at them except the people playing golf.
True.
Which
I
I
happen to
think
golf there
helps.
myself. And-
Yes.
And there is a certain image of the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be my concern if I were a homeowner there, is making
Mm-hmm.
sure that we're not detracting from that. So that's.
we understand.
That's why I'm looking at it. And, the front, as you're driving around the neighborhood, would be very attractive. But the value of the homes being on the golf course, some of that's driven by people who don't actually live there, the impression that you want to give. And again, there's a certain standard set by the homes that are already in place. So I think, as you mentioned, it's only a handful of buildings that would be in that situation. For me, anyway, I don't know what the increment would be on that. I think that would, I'd have a preference for that. To be fair, I don't know that I would condition approval on that, but I would like to see something like that on there.
Understood.
I think those are about the only comments I have on there. The big thing, again, just an overarching concern that I have is ensuring that even though we're going to a shorter, a one-story versus a two-story, a ranch can still be, of equal quality and value and all that. And frankly, the existing ones, the second story, the side elevations that I saw, I personally don't like the big sea of siding on that either. Yes, I don't find that the least bit attractive.
Right.
The thing that helps it out is the brick on the first floor, the little knee wall, those kind of elements. But that sea of siding on there, I actually think the side elevations on the new version are much more attractive. It's just that rear elevation that I don't like.
Understood. We do think the front elevations and the sides are a vast improvement over the existing, like you had just mentioned. I think that was intentional, as Patricia can attest to. We can take a look at the rear elevations and see if there's something, we might be able to come up with, at least maybe for the 4-unit buildings, if you're worried about that, the
Yeah,
mass
I
in there.
think perhaps you're right. The 4-unit building is the one that's really,
I don't think it's a
start.
problem for the other ones, but, we'll take a look at it and see if there's something that we can, come up with that makes sense from a cost-effective, development standpoint. Keep in mind, too, these are all cathedral ceilings in these ranches, too. So we don't want to mess with those roofs too much and affect the truss design for those cathedral ceilings.
yeah, and that's why I'm saying, I used to work in the trade there, so I know you can
Sure.
take this exact thing, but before you
Right.
put the roof on it, you slap a little faux gable on there just to break up the line, so.
Understood.
Okay,
That's all
any
I
more
have, Mr.
comments?
Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Shaw. A quick question, Anthony, as staff noted and some of the commissioners, that, there's no changes to the lot lines. The plat, the recorded plat of subdivision always had Phase 7. I'm just curious why it took 30 years for Phase 7. I know there's other,
Oh, boy. There's a lot of factors, and let me just say that the village, a couple years ago, we had some meetings, and we were challenged by some of the village officials to come up with a solution to completing this phase. And trust me, we don't enjoy sitting on vacant lots, paying taxes and with no income, okay? The original units that were built in the mid-2000s, when the financial crisis hit, we had 14 units that were partially completed as were going to be models. And we're never able to successfully sell those or complete those. And we had 12 foundations that were in the ground. We looked at it and said, what can we do to move this project forward? We started to get tremendous interest because of a change in lifestyle from the market to lease rather than own these single-family homes. It's probably one of the hottest sectors that are out there. So we were able to justify investing the additional millions of dollars to complete those units, including the 12 units we're building right now. But we knew we had to re-look at the whole product and make something that was more contemporary for today's market and needs. And we are confident with this new product, so confident that we will be able, we're calling that we will phase out the 91 units over 2 years. We will build out 44 units in the first phase, 47 in the second phase is the way we're looking at it. And for a total of about $40 million investment, and complete this subdivision, including the remaining public improvements. That's how confident we are that this product will be successful versus what is existing.
you're saying like a 2-year
Yeah.
timetable, so like you're looking at 20?
24 months, starting in the spring.
Okay.
And that was the challenge. The officials were saying, hey, we got to find a way to get this done and get it completed, get the improvements done. And we think it's a benefit to everyone out there to have a completed development and have this phase be done and people living in the community.
I totally agree, and to your point, like, yeah, there's a lot of things in society that has changed, like, 15 years ago, you wouldn't be getting in a stranger's car, but now we have Uber, right? So
Exactly.
there's so many different things that have
Exactly.
changed, and so if you don't change with the times, you'd still be probably holding on to that land. So your
And
point,
we offer a really unique package. There's no other place that we know of in the south or southwest suburbs that can offer the same lifestyle of a private, gated golf course community with the amount of permanent open space, the privacy that you want. These new homes are gonna have, be smart homes with digital equipment packages like, like the Ring doorbell system, smart thermostats, smart door locks, the types of things that people like to see today and expect to see in these type of new products. So, we're excited about it.
Right, and there's absolutely a demand, as Commissioner Tibbetts had mentioned about these retirees and whatnot, and I know my parents don't like to go upstairs, and so the ranch does have an absolute value, especially with retirees. But I think the key here is for open item, one, which the staff had asked about, whether it's a change from a second story to a one-story. I think it's reasonable. There's no changes to the lot lines, there's no change to the plat of subdivision that's been on the books for 30 years. So I'm okay with open item one. Open item two, I know Commissioner Shaw had some concerns on the rear sight lines of the building for the 4 units. But overall, it looks like the materials look like they're quality. The fact that you're gonna have some smart homes, I don't think it's like you're putting in some, cheap,
No, absolutely not.
building in regards to what is existing there.
Right.
So I think the intention there is, even though there's some changes, I think it's, I don't have any issues personally with the changes. In terms of the waiver, staff had mentioned with the trees, I know you guys talked about the waiver for the 50-foot, the trees along 50 foot of the frontage, but to me, it does not, it appears like you got, sufficient foliage there. If you plot the 1 tree per unit there, I think that looks,
I think we'll exceed the 50 feet as
Yeah.
far as, by
Yeah.
the time we get done, because of, proximity of the buildings to each other.
right. So you'll have some shade, some screening. I think that looks tasteful to me, so. With that said, I don't have any other comments. These, the open items to me are, I don't have any issues with. I know staff had some other, the fellow commissioners had other comments, so, at this time, is there anything else the petitioner would like to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. With that said, I'll ask,
Well, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
just Because I'm the only one that raised it about the rear elevation, I just would like to see, informal poll of the rest of the commissioners to see if there's consensus on it. Again, I'm not proposing that it be a condition of approval. I would just like, if there is consensus, that be communicated. If I'm all alone in that, that's fair too.
and,
So.
staff put up the rear elevation here for the 4 unit.
And again, to clarify, based on the discussion there, to me, the one that is most egregious, I guess, would be the 4 unit. The other ones, it's less of a concern to me. Just want to get thoughts from the other commissioners.
So I can jump in. So the biggest thing that originally for me was thinking about what would the 1-level houses look like next to the 2-level? But when you see them compared with each other, probably because of the vaulted ceilings, I wouldn't be concerned about buying one of these that was right next to or near in the same sight line as those. I'm not that concerned about the rear facade.
And Patricia really quickly just pointed out to me that the rear elevations on the existing product actually do look fairly similar, except for the variation in the roof for the 2 stories. That's about it, but otherwise, it's a fairly straight rear elevation.
Yeah, can
Fairly
you
flat.
pull that slide up that you just did a minute ago where it showed the comparison of the existing and the new?
Yeah, this exhibit just shows the front and
Oh,
sides.
okay, we don't have the back.
Let me show you back.
Okay,
No.
it's a fair point. Again, I don't want to belabor it, I just, if that's my perspective only, then we could just move on.
That
Up
could be
on
my
this,
perspective only, too.
Yeah, sure, let's just do an informal straw poll. Just raise your hand if you think design as shown, the proposed design as shown for that rear facade for the 4 units is okay, for lack of a better term, or would need some doctoring up.
Which one?
So for the first one, if the rear is fine as shown on the screens right now.
For the
That's fine.
4-unit, I think maybe they could break it up with cables.
Okay.
Just the one 4-unit.
And then Kurt, you were on the fence here? I think
I
you
am, I think Ken has a good point.
Yeah, I
And
do
it-
too.
it got
Ken
by
has-
me.
For the 4-unit, I think.
For the 4-unit, Kenny has a very good point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, okay, and then Commissioner Manny, you were, I think, with
I was
us.
in favor of how it is shown, because if you do put a cable on it, then now you're creating an atypical unit that doesn't have it, you know, so I think if you're gonna add it, try to add it.
To be consistent. Yeah.
So this will be inconsistent if you broke it up. Yeah, I understand your point too, yeah, it's like a sea of shingles, but, you know, that's the design, you know, I mean, it's not, you know, doesn't detract to me, in my opinion. And my professional opinion is also as an architect.
Right.
Looking at that,
So,
you know, I think that looks nice.
All right,
okay.
fair point.
It's like-
I'm good with that.
I think it was.
Again, just so we're clear on the point, I'm not conditioning approval on it. And you do make a fair point. The whole consistency on this type of development is important, so. I agree. All right,
Okay, well, no, I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Shaw. I appreciate everybody kind of informally, chiming in for that. With that said, if the petitioner has nothing else to add, I will ask if there's anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item. If you could please come forward, state your name, sign it there, and I'll swear you in.
My name is Andrew McLeod. I'm a
Okay.
resident of the Odyssey.
Okay, Mr. McLeod, okay, thank you. And do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It will.
Please proceed.
So my first question was from a statement you made early in the process here. You mentioned that this was part of the Fairway Association?
Part of Fairway Townhomes.
Town Association. That is incorrect. There was a movement to put it into Fairway, but they had expired their right to do it without permission from the association, and so therefore, it was never put into Fairway. So technically, it's in nothing right now. It is technically, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, it was originally part of the Estate Homes Association. And it had to be transferred to one of the townhome associations. And when that didn't happen, we were under the impression that it was going to be a new association called Gulfview, is what we were told. So to my knowledge, I don't know what it is. Also, I was told at the time, since I was president of the board at the time this occurred, was that it would not be subject to the umbrella association.
It is part of the master association, yes.
I totally agree, but we were told at the time it was not going to be part of the master association, that it would be separate without the need for paying assessments to the master association.
I'm not aware of that. I know it is not technically part of the Fairway Association, that is correct, because it's gonna be, it'll be self-maintained, it'll be maintained on its own outside of the Fairway Association.
Well, so are you introducing a new association then? Because how are they going to be maintained, these units? Are these only for lease?
This is gonna be a single owner that has and maintains the entire phase.
So one owner is going to own the whole phase, and then they're going to lease out.
Initially, yes.
Is that the plan in terms of that? Because we're trying to figure out where this fits in within the associations of how, assessments. You mentioned about the gate. Are they going to be subject to paying the assessments for the umbrella association to maintain that gate? Or is it going to be 25% of the homeowners that live there are going to live without having to pay for that privilege?
Again, that's, I'd have to check with our attorney for the development. I don't deal with that issue, to be honest with you. That's not something I'm working on.
I understand. That was
I
question.
do know it's part of the umbrella, okay? And that's the ingress and egress rights and all that come with the, that's recorded against that phase of the property, which means there should be some compensation for the umbrella association for the gate.
I would agree with that in terms of that. The second part of this is that the reason why it was denied for it to be part of Fairway was because your rights as, or the Intercontinental's rights, to be specific, if I remember correctly, they didn't have the right for modification without approval from the association and the Umbrella Association. To my knowledge, this project has modifications that you're talking about now, has not been reviewed by the Umbrella Association at all. And would it be subject to, if I remember correctly from the board, or from you guys, the commission, that when a townhome association or another association, there's a modification, it requires approval from that association prior to the issuance of a variance. Is that not correct?
Staff, I'm not exactly sure of the protocol on that. I do know that like, the bylaws of whatever association governs that.
It's in the bylaws.
Yeah, right. So, staff, are you familiar? Lori, if not, we can look into it in terms of, as this gentleman said, it has to be approved first by the bylaws. Now, from what it sounds like is there's some confusion on who is the governing for this, these lots.
That would be correct.
But-
If I may.
Yes, go ahead, Jarrell.
So the association requirements are separate private covenants, and we do not enforce those private covenants. To go any further into that, we could just get your contact information and follow up with you on that request.
Right, because from what, in the past, when we've had modifications done for decks and so forth, and sought approval for permits, that has always required association approval.
Again, I think the best course of action moving forward would be to just get your contact information, and then
That
we
would
can
be
follow
fine.
up
I
with you
can-
on that on that. So before the end of the meeting, let me get your information.
Not a
We can
problem
follow
in
up
terms
with
of
you.
that. Because we wanted this also built out. Let's be frank about it. We all want this done because it's been 30 years. I've lived there for 21. And I'm not, there are people here in the room who've lived here longer than me. And I've been on the board and off the board since 2003, when it was turned over. So my other question to you is to help if it's going to be a single owner, and to help the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And this, you're looking at this from a standpoint of, if I remember correctly, where this is going to be for retirees type individuals.
We see that being the primary demographic.
I see it too. I can definitely see that and I can appreciate that. What percentage are you going to do for handicap accessible? Because I would think you'd want to extend that number, because as seniors get older, some of them end up in wheelchairs, and having it as handicap accessible, to me, would also be a benefit to you, as well as to the community, in terms of, I believe it's 1 in 4 is the EEOC requirements right now for new construction, if I remember correctly from years ago, where a percentage of the homes have to be handicapped accessible. But this might be an opportunity to increase that, because we're going to have a different demographics going forward. And as people get older, it gets harder to do the stairs, it gets harder to do other things, and making those handicapped accessible. And I know when I worked with Nick years ago for my mother's and father's home, it was modified to make it totally handicapped accessible, because we were afraid my father was going to end up in a wheelchair. So you may want to be looking into that, and that's why I raised that point, since you're looking at modifications anyways, and you're changing from a 2-story to a 1-story
There's a big
product.
step in that direction, obviously, everything's on one level, so it's just a matter of accessibility into the unit, and obviously, bathroom accessibility, and I don't know, Tricia, you're the expert on that as far as design.
Because it's easier to have a little bit wider. So we put 36-inch doors throughout their place, and we did that modification, and it worked great in terms of that. But you may want to consider that as part of what you're doing here, is to increase that accessibility. Because if your goal is to lease these with a single owner, who would be owning this at this juncture? Or is this a spec sale that you're suggesting?
No, Gulfview Tinley Park LLC, which is the entity that actually owns all the lots and the existing units, would be the single owner.
So Gulfview would own the units,
Right.
and it'd be a single owner as Gulfview,
Mm-hmm.
but they are going to be part of the umbrella association then? That's what I'm kind of a little curious about.
Well,
And-
they're connected to the development through the umbrella association, their access is provided through the umbrella association.
But they're,
But they're not part of the Fairway or any other town, the other.
yeah, that's part of the question is where do they kind of fit in
Okay.
in terms of this? Because right now, we don't have a master slave organization. If you, from the Declaration of Bylaws and Covenants that are in place, but what we have is 3 underlying associations that select membership to the umbrella association. And so that's where this is becoming a little bit confusing, how this would work, and how would you be ensuring that these homes would be maintained going forward? Because it's nice to sell them, but 5 years from down the road, when maintenance issues crop up, who's going to be maintaining those units? How are they going to be maintained? Generally, that's done by a homeowners association that oversees it. and
Mr.
I haven't seen
McLeod,
anything
I
about
just want to rein this back in a little bit. You make
Yeah.
some salient points. It does seem like there's some underlining questions in terms of how the associate,
that. That was just one point, yeah.
right. And so with that said, you may need to have an offline conversation with the owner. I think Anthony said some of his knowledge on that is a little limited, right?
Yeah, I'm not directly involved in some of those issues.
It's,
Right.
and I appreciate that, and I can,
I'm not
but,
gonna try and act like I.
no,
Right.
and I'm not trying to, but
And so if-
I bring that up because if it's not part of the townhome associations in terms of that, and I'll bring it up to you in terms of the other issue in terms of that, but those were the 3 things that I saw that were of concern in terms of moving forward. On the other hand, love the idea about completing the association. Also concerned about construction traffic and how that will work, considering, I know you opened the back gate today, but I had a dump truck almost run over me going in through the front gate, even though you had opened a construction gate and I saw it open. It's just, how do we make sure that we don't have a problem with safety up front, especially with dump truck drivers and other drivers who are a little bit reckless in terms of that? And how can we ensure the safety? Because we do have not a lot of small children, but we do have some small children. And God forbid, I don't want anybody getting hurt. And we do have a lot of seniors who like to walk. And so I don't want to see anybody hurt. And that would be the other component for the construction that would be proceeding to make sure it would be safe for everybody.
Okay. Okay.
Those are my points. Any other questions for me?
No,
Thank you.
Mr. McLeod, we appreciate your time.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for bringing up some other issues. Yes, is there anybody else wishing to speak? Please approach the lectern.
So you don't see a masked man.
So if you don't mind stating your name.
Okay, sure, it's Dr. Damon Arnold. I just
Okay.
moved into the Odyssey Club approximately 3 months ago.
Okay. And if you can write your name on the,
Sure. Okay.
okay, Dr. Arnold, do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I so do.
Okay, please proceed.
Yeah, I moved into the Odyssey about 3 months ago with kind of an expectation about how the property values were. I paid a significant amount of money for a home, so I'm part of the estate system. And, my esteemed person who just spoke, he actually raised some really very good points. With the construction of about 91 units, 44 in the first and 47 in the second phase over a 24-month period, there's going to be considerable amount of traffic. And the question is the infrastructure underneath the ground, whether that's going to be impacting our homes, whether we're going to have problems with repair of roads, and whether that's going to affect our tax structure. Also, the one-story building, I've heard it several times, there are going to be retirees there. There's no limitation, no federal restriction on who can buy a home. So that's really an open question about who's going to be moving in. I think to pigeonhole it in that form is incorrect. We should not be saying that this is just retiree homes.
Excuse me,
I don't think we did.
that isn't what was said.
No.
They're being built with the seniors and the empty nesters in mind,
With them in mind.
but it's not restricted to 55 and older or any particular demographic.
Right, right. But the glow from the, all the conversations and what everyone's been saying has made me feel that you're talking about a retirement community.
No.
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 Okay.
It just appeals to those individuals.
So this is open to the general public, so we're not really talking about retirement community.
No.
Okay.
I don't think anyone was under that impression, and for me anyway, speaking for myself, if that was the impression that was given, I think that that's not
Okay.
the impression that,
So I just wanted to correct that point and make sure that that was,
Yeah.
stated in that way. And also, it's a one-story ranch home, which I think is less value than a two-story home, the last time I checked the market.
No, I will beg to differ on that. I
Okay.
have looked for one-story homes for my parents who are both retired. They have a two-story home in the town. Double the price for a one-story home in Tinley Park. Almost double the price for square footage.
Double the price?
Almost,
And
yep.
what about the tax structure?
Tax structure, well, I mean, same thing. It's the same because it's square footage is just spread out over the land where square footage on a two-story goes upward. So it's the same square footage, but it's just spread out on the land.
Oh, because they were saying that the footprint was going to be less than.
Well, that's on a townhouse, yes, but on a normal structure just of a single-family home, it's the same. Because it's
So-
based on square footage.
So the one story is going to be less square footage on the property, on the lot? So,
Slightly less, not much, slightly less.
Slightly
Floor
less,
area
right.
ratio is slightly less.
It's
which
split up.
means-
you're going to have less than a
Less
two-story.
Well, coverage, lot coverage,
It's lot coverage, right,
that's all we were talking about.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that the total square footage of accessible property is going to be half,
Not half.
not
approximately,
even close.
Slightly less, he says.
slightly less.
Slightly less, so.
Weren't those numbers in the presentation? I
Yeah.
thought they were.
Yeah.
So if we could just go to that.
Yeah, just go to that
page.
slide.
Yeah, because I'm
And
trying
answer the
to conceptualize
Interior
it.
square footage is gonna vary a lot
Right.
between a two-story and a one-story.
And while she's finding those numbers for you, for your infrastructure question, there is a maintenance fee that's paid to the village. And so our engineering team will monitor the roads and make the necessary repairs as they see fit. And then we do also maintain a bond to make sure that any damage that incurs is fixed as well,
Incur to the homes themselves,
to the infrastructure.
the infrastructure. So that leads into the home, so I mean, it may affect my home. If a water main breaks, if something else happens under the ground.
That's a part of the infrastructure, and again, we do maintain the maintenance fee and the bond to ensure that any of those necessary repairs are made in the event that something like that happens.
And the effect on the home.
Well, the bond is just to cover the infrastructure, as far as I understand it.
The infrastructure comes into my home. So I'm trying to figure out what part of the infrastructure, does it end at my property line?
It ends in the public easement, as far as I understand it.
And also, one of the things is that, as you were mentioning things, I was trying to figure out, how this will affect our property taxes. Because I'm not sure of what the tax structure is around that one-story structure. Because if it's being taxed at a lesser rate, does that mean that our taxes go down? Or how does that affect our taxes?
I mean, taxes are based on what your square footage is of your home.
Right.
It's not based on, it's based on what your square footage is on your home, through the assessor's office.
Right. 'Cause
So, I mean, like, on the screen, you can see the difference. It's only about 162 square foot difference per unit. So it's not that much difference.
And
Okay.
we can't really project what the difference would be in your taxation rate, because that would
Right.
be more of a question for the assessor's office.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily assess your property taxes, we can only direct you to the other agency.
Okay. And then also, one of the things about the rear sight lines and, the rear elevation. I think that was really aptly said by Paul. Because one of the things is that when I looked at that image, it reminded me of being on a military post. I'm a veteran. It looks like Fort Sill. It looks like Fort Bliss in Texas. Very, very nondescript, and, that one long roof, as he was saying, having it not have some kind of aesthetic appeal, because I golf, so I'll be looking at them too. Many of the people who are on Odyssey Club also participate in walking around the land and taking walks through that area. So I think that is something that really needs to be paid attention to, as people are looking at this property. And one of the things I'm just concerned about more too is just, the open access, and it's going to be cheaper, I would imagine, for, some of the units, if you have 4 units in one of the structures, per unit. So I'm just concerned about people coming in to take advantage of this, the cheaper price.
The configuration of the unit types is not changing. So as the previous approval had, out of these 25 lots remaining vacant, 17 of them are 4-unit, 7 are 3-unit, and 1 is 2-unit.
Right.
So that is, the unit density is not changing.
Okay. Well, but I heard it was going down though, right? The unit density will go down, that we'd have less density? Someone mentioned that.
No, it wasn't unit density. We discussed the slight
FAR
reduction.
is coming down a little bit.
Right, floor area ratio.
The density is exactly the same as the original approval.
Also throughout the
Yes,
complex?
yes.
Okay.
Floor area ratios in respect to the lots in the property. So how much square footage you have above grade in comparison to that square footage of the lot area.
So I just want to get a clear view. So the only major change is that you're going from a 2-unit structure to a 1-unit?
That is largely the change. The previous approval had a few different model types. They largely were 2 stories. They were more square footage per unit. The proposal here is to have a unit A and unit B, end unit and interior unit. So the proposal is, staff has crafted in the motion, is to allow for both types of model developments. It is the developer's intent to go with what is being currently proposed for them, but, as I said, the development, they're doing this as a response to the general market demand.
Right. And then we have also, 27, the last home that was built, a single-family home, was about 27 years ago. So there's one under construction currently. And that one actually brings some traffic through, and I think that is a concern for me. If you have 44 buildings being constructed in the first phase, that's a heck of a lot of traffic. Dust, all kinds of things coming through the area. And I'm not sure of how that's going to be phased over time. And 91 units, you're talking about building a little city.
That is understood. As the developer will work through the permitting process, the village will be involved in making sure the activity is, not to be of a general nuisance, right? The proposal, again, it was for they have a previously approved right to build the 91 units. So the developer is provided a anticipated phasing of over 2 years. The one benefit of that is that that's less time of having construction equipment overall go on. So it may not be an ideal situation for 2 years, but if they stay on track, then after that, hopefully we'll have completion, and the roadways and other site features will be developed.
Okay. And they'll be reporting back to the community members on each of the phases and what you're doing?
Well, so this is part of the zoning entitlement process. So, we're here as a we provided a public notification. We certainly could get the contact information for the association if
there's additional information that you would need to seek from staff, but in general, is the, once the approval, provided this site plan architectural approval happens here with the Plan Commission, and special use for substantial deviation to the PUD happens to be approved at the village board, then the developer would have the right to develop this proposed type of unit, and that would be handled through the permitting process. So, we certainly could take association contact information, but, this is, as I said, this notification was provided in order for the residents to be aware of this change that's happening.
And to add on to that, our inspectors will be on site daily and monitor the progress of this. And then in addition to that, we have pre-construction, our building official will have a pre-construction meeting with the construction team to, address any issues that may come up or could potentially come up. And then you all do have the right as citizens to still report other issues to us. As it was noted, there is a construction entrance, so that should try to mitigate some of those concerns. And then with our building official and other inspectors on site, we should be able to kind of try to help any debris or anything like that from, interfering with the residents as is.
And with the golf course, will that interfere with the operation of the golf course for 2 years?
As far as I understand, it should not.
We could defer to the petitioner.
Never has historically, we've built a lot of units out there already, so.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, just having a point of contact, so, if we have concerns as things go along, that we are actively, this is our property. I paid to be there. And so, this is my home. And I see kids, I have kids next door, kids across the street. I don't want to see them run over.
Absolutely, and I mean, for any other concerns as well, again, same as I told the other gentleman, we can exchange contact information, and then that way we can stay in contact with you and then kind of keep you updated throughout the process.
Right.
And you can always report any concerns that you have to us as well.
Yeah, I'm just very, always leery about construction. I've seen a lot of fiascos, over time. I'm at the University of Chicago, but I see all kinds of things going on in neighborhoods, and I just want to make sure that this is being done with the best intentions for the people who are actually owners of the property, who currently reside there. People who are doing construction don't have to live there. They go home, as well as the people, developers, they go home. So this is something that we want to be concerned with.
And trust me, we don't want to see anybody get run over by anything. And I think one of the benefits of the way this will be developed is, and Lori made a good point, I know it's a short, 24 months is a short window to get that units done, but then it's over, it's done, rather than being dragged out over 5-8 years and, still having construction going on. There's a benefit to having it done quickly. Secondly, this phase 7 is all self-contained by itself. So other than getting, workers into that and equipment in there, you're not gonna really be bothered by construction activity, because it's all within that phase of the, you know what I mean? It's not like it's adjacent to a single-family home. It's surrounded by golf course, it's kind of off by itself, so I think that will minimize the daily life disruptions that you might have in another normal subdivision, where you could have a house going up right next to you.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will make it a little easier.
Yeah, I was thinking about 91 homes going up, I'm going to hear any noise. I'm not sure if you can guarantee that.
Well, think of it as 25 buildings,
Right.
not 91 homes. It's 91 units, but 25 buildings.
25 buildings,
So
yeah.
25 homes,
Yeah.
buildings. So we
Okay.
appreciate your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
We'll do our best to.
Thank you, Dr. Arnold, for your comments. Anybody else wishing to speak from the public?
My name is Catherine Chagru. I'm a resident of Odyssey also since 1994.
Okay. Okay.
Catherine
Ms.
is fine.
Catherine,
Yes.
do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
My first question is, was it proposed that this was going to be a leased property and not property for sale for residents of Tinley Park?
I do need to note that as far as this zoning entitlement process is concerned, the village does not have any control or regulation over rental versus ownership.
Okay.
So this is just a change to what the proposed development would be.
Okay. And then it is very homogeneous, so it is what it is. Obviously, being there for all these years, I've lived through all the phase changes, and I've been to these meetings before. And then, but when they go before the village board, I don't understand, except for cost, obviously, the lack of taking out basements and putting them on slabs when everything has a basement in our development. So obviously, it's a cost thing. It's big with rentals. It's easier and it's faster to build it. The infrastructure has been there. The utilities are all in. They've all been there forever, since the first house went in 1993. So it's not anything that's really going to be disrupted except cost of doing it. The back of the building is a concern, and I don't care. I mean, I live on the golf course, but I still pride myself that I have property and I own it and I take care of it and make it look nice no matter where you live. And I would hope that is a concern of everyone in the village. That it's just not about, because they're just going to lease it, they're just going to put up anything, and then it's a lack of making the rest of us feel like it's worth our while for what we pay and what we have paid, and going forward with everything. So I just had my concerns about, obviously it's cost, that it's going to be on a slab versus having the basement dug out, because it is taking dirt in and out to level things off. And of course, the back of the units, I'm not so thrilled with, not that anyone asked, but I thought I'd say it anyways. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Catherine, for your comments. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll go back to our commissioners. Does anybody else have any comments to add? Okay, if there's no further questions or discussion, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Okay, motion made by Commissioner Truxell, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Staff, could you please present the standards at this time?
Okay. I have the standards A through C up on the screen. These are standards for special use, as this is a special use for substantial deviation to the PUD. The first standard, staff has drafted all of these standards in support of the proposal. Firstly, the allowance of single-story in addition to previously approved two-story units will not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. The proposal maintains a consistent architectural style and unit type complementary to the existing buildings in the development. Secondly, the proposal will have no adverse effect on the area and will help complete construction on the vacant lots. The proposal responds to the current needs of the housing market and will help facilitate completion of the development. This is in regards to that the use will not be injurious to use and enjoyment of the property in the vicinity. Thirdly, in regards to the impeding of normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses in the district, the proposal will not impede or adversely affect future development of surrounding properties. The proposal will facilitate orderly development of the area. The nature, location, and size of the proposal is cohesive with the surrounding uses as part of the Odyssey Club planned unit development. I have standards D through F up here regarding utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities. The development is located within an existing planned unit development. All necessary utilities, access roads, and other stormwater management facilities are to adequately service the development have been approved and installed or will be completed within the development. Regarding adequate measures for ingress and egress, the development is located within existing PUD. This includes a gated golf course community. The ingress, egress, and associated traffic volumes were previously designed and engineered to accommodate the completion of the 117 total townhome units. And then F, in regards to conforming to regulations of the code, the proposed substantial deviation will conform to the applicable zoning regulations of the Odyssey Club development, including the same unit density and single-family attached building type as previously approved and constructed on the development. And lastly, the standard is in regards to contribution, indirectly or directly, to economic development of the community as a whole. The proposal will contribute positively to the economic growth and development of the community. By completing construction of the townhomes on otherwise vacant lots, the aesthetics and values of the neighboring property owners will be positively impacted. Completion of the lots mean additional taxable property value and additional units to share set expenses with the master HOA. And then I have on the screen, secondly, for the site plan architectural approval. These are the standards A through J, things that summarize building materials, building design, compatible architecture, color, architectural design, sustainable architectural design, defined entry, roof, building articulation, screen mechanicals, trash enclosures. These are all per the zoning code. These are the details for each of those that are under consideration for site plan architectural approval, and these are the standards for site design. I have up on screen the two motions, a special use for the PUD, substantial deviation, and the site plan architectural approval.
Okay, thank you, Lori. At this time, I have a motion number 1, for special use for substantial deviation regarding this item.
I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit for the substantial deviation from the Odyssey Club planned unit development to the petitioner Anthony DeAngelis on behalf of the Intercontinental Real Estate and Development to permit a second model type to be constructed for Phase 7 in the R5 PD, low-density residential zoning districts in accordance with the plans submitted and adopt findings of fact as proposed in the November 17th, 2022 staff report, subject to the following. Approval is subject to final engineering plan review and approval, either model type single-story or two-story to be constructed in Phase 7 of the PUD.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Truxell. Lori, could you please?
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
While we have a motion, can I make a couple comments on the motion?
Sure, but I think then we'd have to second it again?
No.
Okay.
When you,
Okay.
there's a motion, a second, and then you can discuss it.
Okay.
That's
Fair enough.
just Robert's rules, so. I would just like to emphasize a couple of things based on the comments that were made here tonight. I don't want to make any assumptions about what you folks out here know about how the process works, so I'm just going to emphasize a couple of things. The Plan Commission is a recommending body. We don't approve anything. We make a recommendation to the village board, and the village board decides whether or not to accept our recommendation or not. And a couple of things, there were really good points brought up about the association, you know, what the relationships are, some of the legalities and all that. None of that is within our purview, or staff, really. And I think the village attorney would have to advise the board on, you know, what, if anything, they can do about it. I would personally say that it's relevant information for the board to consider on it at their level, not for us to consider. And as far as construction concerns go, again, it's not something that their approval would necessarily be conditioned on, but it's still really good information for the board to have, because then they can direct staff, and the staff here has done a really good job of communicating that. The construction process, we do have a building department that's all over that stuff, and we have other developments where people have had concerns, they call in, and they're on top of it. So I just want to let you guys, I didn't want you to get the impression walking away from this that nobody's listening to you. So I just wanted to emphasize that point while we had the motion on the table.
Fair enough. I understand. I thought you're just adding comments, you're not actually modifying the motion. That's what I.
Absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. With that said, Lori, could I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Yes.
Commissioner Truxell.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. And now, may I have a motion number 2 regarding the site plan and architectural approval for this item?
I make a motion to grant the petitioner Anthony DeAngelis on behalf of Intercontinental Real Estate and Development site plan architectural approval for single-story ranch townhomes at Olympus Drive and Apollo Court, Odyssey Club Phase 7, in the R5 PD Low Density Residential Odyssey Club PUD zoning district in accordance with the plans submitted and listed herein, subject to the following conditions. 1, the site plan architectural approval is subject to approval of the special use for a substantial deviation to PUD by the village board. 2, site plan architectural approval is subject to engineering and building department permit review and approval of final plans, including any grading or drainage changes. 3, physical material samples shall be provided during the permit process for staff review and approval. Final color and materials shall be subject to review and approval by village staff prior to issuance of a building permit.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Truxell, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. Lori, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts,
Yes.
Commissioner Truxell,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, motion is carried. So this item will go to the village board on Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. So the petitioner, please get with staff for additional details, time, and good luck going forward. And we'll move on to item number 3, the final item on tonight's agenda. It's a workshop public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Leonard McHenry on behalf of Gas and Wash a special use for an automobile service station and variations, urban design overlay, parking minimum, parking locations, wall/ground signs, etc., to permit a gas station with a convenience store, car wash, and 2 drive-through restaurant uses at the property located at 18301 LaGrange Road, the southeast corner of LaGrange Road and 183rd Street, in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. The petitioner requested a continuation to the December 1st, 2022 Plan Commission meeting because they continue to work through coordinating final staff review comments and update the plans. So at this time, rather than opening the public hearing, may I have a motion to move the workshop/public hearing to December 1st, 2022, as the petitioner had requested.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to continue the public hearing for item number 3 as noted on the agenda until the December 1st, 2022 Plan Commission meeting as requested by the petitioner.
Thank you.
Didn't you want to include the workshop too? In that motion?
Sure, if you want to amend.
Mr. Chairman, I will rephrase the motion. I make a motion to continue the public hearing and workshop for item number 3 as noted on the agenda until the December 1st, 2022 Plan Commission meeting as requested by the petitioner.
Okay, and do I hear a second? Okay, motion made by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried. This item is continued to the December 1st, 2022 Plan Commission meeting. That's been granted, so staff, I guess, let the petitioner, Leonard McHenry, know the information for that. With that said, we'll move on to the good of the order. Staff, do you have anything to present for the good of the order?
Nothing new to present, so, as, we had our training last meeting, I hope that all the commissioners who, I think it was all but.
I was online the entire time.
You were online the entire
I was
time?
in
So, the big takeaway from it is staff felt that it was very productive, and, I would hope that the commissioners felt that way as well. Going forward, as we prepare for these meetings, we just want to reiterate, if any of the commissioners ever have any questions that you want to reach out to staff, see if we can try to get ahead to help answer any questions at the meeting. We're certainly available. So, please use us as a resource in those regards. And that's all I have at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. We'll move on to receiving comments from the public. Seeing none left in the room, we'll move on to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to close the the meeting?
Make motion.
Second.
Okay, a motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Truxell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, a motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned at 8:53 PM Central Time. Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too.